Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Greenblatt, and I'm hosting today's webinar for drivers about safety. We have two guests with us who I'll introduce in a moment from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. This webinar will last a little less than half an hour or so, we think. We will be taking questions both through the Facebook Live chat and by submitting questions through Zoom if you're using Zoom. So feel free to send us questions at any time. I did want to start off though by thanking you, the drivers who are tuning in today for the work that you're doing. I know that the message keeps being out there that everybody should stay home and stay 6 feet away from each other and things like that. But essential workers like you who need to be out there need to keep the city running, making sure that healthcare workers are getting where they need to be going and other workers are getting where they need to be going. I just want you to know that we really appreciate that, and that's why we're doing this webinar today, to help you guys, you men and women, stay safe. I also wanted to just say a word about drivers' benefits, and I'll talk about this more at the end about what we provide. But drivers' benefits is set up to help drivers get benefits. And these are drivers who drive for black car services like Uber or Lyft, or the traditional mom and pop services like Vital and Skyline. We provide free telemedicine for all black car drivers in New York State. So if you are driving for one of those services, be sure to sign up for us. We have a whole bunch of other benefits, but for today's conversation, that's probably the most relevant. And that lets you talk to a doctor anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for free. So we'll talk about that at the end a little bit more. Please stay on for that. But if you haven't signed up for driver's benefits in the past, please be sure to do that. Okay, I want to take a moment to introduce Anna Schatz. She's a community coordinator with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and Gemma Oaken. She is the Director of Policy for the Division of Disease Control for the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Maybe if each of you could just take a moment to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing around the COVID-19 crisis, and then we'll get into questions. Anna, you wanted to start?
Yeah, hello. My name is Anna Schatz. I'm with the Department of Health, the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and I'm a community coordinator on the community affairs team. So making sure that all the good information gets out to the communities and working with communities to help and support during this crisis during COVID-19 activation. Yeah, Rima.
Okay, thanks, Rima.
Sorry, we're in different rooms. We're so used to being able to communicate in the same room, but we are appropriately social distancing. So my name is Gemma Oaken. I am the Director of Policy within Disease Control. And my pre-COVID job dealt with over 100 different reportable diseases and conditions. But as I'm sure everyone can imagine, that we have been very focused on the COVID-19 outbreak in New York City, and we're working on anything from messaging and policy and anything that's important to really shift how we're thinking about this very, very fast-moving train.
Well, thank you both for joining us. I can only imagine how crazy your days are, and we really appreciate you taking this time. I want to say before we get started that the questions we're going to be asking are very particular for drivers. So let's start with that. Can you, well, we just got a question in that I think really starts us off in exactly the kind of things we're talking about. Let's say a driver has been called to pick somebody up, they accept the ride, they get there and the passengers say, I don't know, heading to a doctor's office or heading to a hospital, the passenger may appear ill. So what if they have, they look like they may have a fever, they're coughing, etc. Should a driver pick up somebody like that, or should they just say, no, you got to call an ambulance? What's an appropriate way to handle a situation where you're concerned that your passenger is about to may have the disease?
So it's a tough question because a lot of it comes down to what people are comfortable doing. We can tell you that certainly there is always a risk of transmission if you are in close contact with someone who is infected with and has COVID-19. And we can give you steps that you can do to reduce the chance of you getting it. Whether an individual driver is comfortable picking up someone that's really up to them. I think it's important for everyone to know the risks, understand the risks, and make an educated decision about what you want to do. We have a number of things that we think it's important for all New Yorkers and for anyone that's in close contact with someone like a driver to do. The most probably that's very relevant to drivers is that if you are going to be within 6 feet of people, which is most cars, you would be within 6 feet of a passenger, to wear a face covering. And this can be just any secured paper or cloth covering. I have mine here. I don't need to wear it since there's no one nearby, but this is something that, I use when I'm hiking, and I found it at home and it's perfect. I can secure it to my face. And that provides an extra barrier if you are yourself infected and don't realize it. And so we're just really asking, New Yorkers to have to wear that. Hopefully passengers are wearing that too. That would be very, very helpful as well. And also just, disinfecting your car routinely, especially frequently touched surfaces. I can go through, a list of special cleaning procedures if you do that now or a bit later.
Yeah, so let's break this down. So let's talk about face coverings. So so you talk about how for the driver it can be anything, a scarf or whatever. We're hoping to be able to make masks available to drivers soon. We're shopping around for those, and we'll make those available to drivers for free as soon as we can get our hands on enough of them. What about for the passenger? If a passenger shows up and they're not wearing a face covering, should you ask them to go get one? Should you say, hey, before you get in the car, let me wait here a moment. Can you get a face covering because we're going to be less than 6 feet away from each other? Is that an appropriate request?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely within the driver's discretion. A face covering it's not a mandate, but it's something that we are strongly recommending to all New Yorkers. And if people aren't abiding by that and the driver is going to be in close contact with a person, absolutely, it's within. If they want to tell someone to wear a face covering or not accept someone, that's absolutely within their discretion. And just to be clear, the face covering that we're recommending for passengers is the same we'd be recommending for drivers. And it's not a professional healthcare mask, and that's important because we're trying to preserve those for doctors and nurses and the people that really need, an N95 and surgical masks. Those really need to be for the healthcare sector. But you can create a barrier just with a scarf, a bandana. If you do happen to have paper masks at home, you can use that. So the idea is just an added level of protection.
Gotcha. So we keep talking about close contact. Somebody on Facebook just wants us to make sure we're clear on that. So sometimes a driver, will have to help somebody into a car. You may have somebody who's an elderly patient or something like that, or just you're getting luggage and putting that in the back. So close contact, does that just mean within 6 feet? So you should think of every one of your passengers as in close contact with you because they're all going to be within 6 feet? Or are we talking about just, if you're going to have a more of a physical contact with them and their goods?
So we've been saying 6 feet, and just so you have a sense of why we say 6 feet. So the way that COVID is transmitted is through droplets that can come out of someone's mouth if they're sick. Usually when they cough or sneeze or do something that requires a bit more force. But there is some evidence it could also potentially, droplets can leave the mouth of someone who's infected, potentially even when they're just talking. So if you're in that zone, you are more likely to be infected. So that's kind of where we came up with that. It doesn't mean that you're 100% risk-free if you're not within 6 feet, but we think that is really a really safe zone in general, that you're far less likely to become in contact with that spray, and then that spray can enter your eyes or your nose or your mouth, or it could be on your hands and then you touch your face, and that's how that can happen. As far as coming more close and helping someone, it's a really hard time, right? Because our instinct would be we want to help someone with either get their luggage in the car or an older person to enter the car. And I would just stress that if we are doing that, to just definitely it's better if both parties are wearing a face mask. rather a face covering, not a healthcare mask, but a face covering. And that, is really important because you may not know, the driver themselves may not know they're sick, because we know there's people out there who are who don't have symptoms, maybe before symptoms show, or they're so mild you're not thinking anything about them. So it protects others and it protects you. If you are touching someone or some things, we do know that the virus can live on surfaces. Unfortunately, the evidence is all over the place about how long it can live on surfaces, and it matters what kind of material it is. And it also matters, whether, living on a surface is different than it being in a form that can still make you sick. So unfortunately, because this is a new virus, there is a lot we're still learning about it. But we know that hand hygiene is super, super important. So if you are touching another individual, or you're touching their luggage, have hand sanitizer in the car. Immediately use that as soon as you get back into the car. And again, clean the steering wheel and things that you're touching, just in case you accidentally touch something while you still had something that's on you. So I think that would be the best precaution you can take if you are helping a passenger or touching their personal belongings, is to just be sure to use hand sanitizer, alcohol-based hand sanitizer right after that.
Yeah, so we've been talking to drivers, and drivers are having a hard time finding hand sanitizer. So what we did was we put together, designed a kit that drivers can leave in their trunk with water bottles and liquid soap and that kind of stuff, paper towel and a garbage bag. So drivers, if you are saying, hey, hand sanitizer would be great, I can't get any, please go to our website and click the COVID-19 page, and you'll see we have a video of somebody who is put together a kit like that and is using a kit like that with stuff you can find anywhere, soap, water bottles, etc., and we can do that. So earlier we were talking about, it's up to the driver's discretion as to whether or not, they feel safe picking up someone who's clearly has some symptoms that they should be worried about. That is, the TLC, Texas Limousine Commission, would disagree with what you just said, at least before COVID-19, right? You can't show up to pick somebody up and just look at them and say, I'm not picking that person up. And those laws, were put in place to prevent things like, racial prejudice and things like that. In the time of COVID-19, do you know if first of all, Uber and Lyft's policies are any different? Like, are they going to penalize you if you show up and say, hey, I'm not driving this person? And secondly, do you know if the TLC has changed their position so that for-hire vehicle drivers don't have to pick up a passenger if they're concerned about their safety?
Thank you. And you raised a very good point. Two things. One is those kits sound great, because we all know we're saying hand sanitizer, but it is so hard to get. So soap and water is actually,
Oh, hold on a second, guys. We've got a siren passing you, so it's great.
So
all right, there you go.
If you can, soap and water work well. It's 20 seconds washing your hands is what we recommend. So that is a really great backup for people to have, and they can just pour some water and wash their hands. I cannot speak to Uber and Lyft policies or New York City's policies. I completely understand and appreciate these laws were put in place for very good reason. So we would ask drivers to consult with their employer, be it New York City or be it Uber or Lyft, to find out what their policy is on that.
Right. So yeah. So just to be clear, not employers; they're independent contractors, but a big issue in this industry, right? So so I wanted to correct that. So here's what we're going to do, drivers. We're gonna reach out to Uber and Lyft and the Taxi Limousine Commission, and we'll get an answer to this question in the coming days and post it along with this video and send out an email to everybody who registered for this. For this webinar. So give us a few days to track down the answers on that, and we will and we'll get that for you. Okay. I'm checking for another question here. Are there particular places that drivers should try to stay away from? So airports, transit hubs, things like that. Should you just say, hey, look, that's too dangerous, those people have to find another way home? Or is it the same kind of precautions no matter where you are?
Well, with widespread community transmission, we're not focused on travel exposures at this point. I mean, we know there is a lot of COVID in New York City. at the very beginning of the outbreak here, we were looking and interested in screening, in doctors' offices and elsewhere, what someone's recent travel history was, because there was more COVID outside of the country than there was inside of the country. But now that there's widespread community transmission, everybody should think of, regardless of where they're picking up their passenger from, that passenger unfortunately could potentially have COVID.
Gotcha. Okay. Some drivers have been using the raise your hand function. I won't be calling on people who are raising their hands, but I am looking at the questions that are showing up in the Q&A in the Q&A column. So if you do have a question, just feel free to put it right there. I do want to say I've gotten a bunch of questions about economic assistance for drivers. This webinar is not about that. We will be doing another webinar about that when all of those policies have been put in place, and maybe I'll talk about that in the end. But I've even gotten some all caps questions about the financial concerns. We know that they're serious and real, and you should be aware we're working very hard on that. And I'll talk about at the end of this what we're going to do about helping drivers get access to the unemployment insurance and other programs that are available for drivers. But we're going to spend the rest of this webinar, and we've got about 10 minutes or so left to talk about these questions. On the internet, some people have shown kind of do-it-yourself plastic barriers between the passenger and the driver. So they'll tape like plastic tarps, clear plastic tarps and stuff between the driver and passengers. There's certainly some concern about, is that what you want to be doing as a driver? Is that how you want to be presenting yourself? But just in terms of, for the health and safety question, is that something that would make drivers and passengers safer if they use duct tape and a plastic tarp to put a barrier between themselves and their passengers?
And what is ideal, which I recognize not always feasible, is something that's more fixed, like in the New York City taxis where they have those, plastic separation. Because of this droplet transmission that I spoke about earlier and this spray, certainly having a barrier could help protect the driver from that spray. I mean, there's always a problem with some of these, do-it-yourself. You don't know how well it's put up, but creating a barrier is a good idea. Just be mindful that that if you're taking it down, that you should wash your hands very quickly afterwards, because say if someone was in the back seat and they did, cough, and there is some of the virus on it, so it's very important to be very mindful of that. But certainly, and I can't speak to the characteristics of saran wrap, and I don't know how protective that is, but certainly a barrier is helpful.
Gotcha. So I think that raises the next question, which you had touched on earlier, which is about disinfecting a car. So even if you have a plastic barrier, if somebody is in the back of your car and they're infected, whether they know it or not, as we know, they may be showing little or no symptoms. What kind of steps should a driver take to disinfect their car, and how often? Do they have to do it between every passenger or once a day? That kind of thing. So why don't you talk about what they should do and then how often they should do it?
Yeah, so we recommend absolutely cleaning at least once a day, but frequently touch surfaces should be cleaned more frequently, and particularly if there's concern because of the way, if there was a passenger and that was coughing, or that was indicated that they were sick, you certainly would want to disinfect the car after that passenger. But it's using Clorox, alcohol-based, multi-purpose cleaning products, really, peroxide. So what you normally would use to say clean your kitchen counter, clean your bathroom. If you can get your hands on them, Lysol has some great wipes that can be used. And so definitely more frequently clean the things you touch most frequently. So that's really the steering wheel and your gear shift. And then also door handles, buttons for windows. So things like that people are like seatbelt latches, things that that passengers are going to touch invariably when they're in the car, to do that. When you are doing a cleaning, if you have them, it's great to use disposable gloves and to throw them away as soon as you're done cleaning. And to wash your hands or use hand sanitizer immediately after cleaning.
Gotcha. Okay, so I do want to just let drivers know our COVID-19 resource page talks about disinfecting your car. We even have a video that shows people disinfecting the car and how to use it. We have links there to the CDC's page that talks about what cleaners work and what cleaners don't work against COVID-19. So you'll want to check that out as well. So let's talk about gloves a minute. So you had said, talked about possibly throwing them out. You're disposing of them after each cleaning and things like that. That's, I think most people who wear gloves, like put them on at the beginning of the day, take them off at the end of the day, and, feel like that's somehow a protection. Talk about how the gloves do help, how they don't help, and if you do need to dispose of them that often. I think drivers aren't getting access to gloves that often. If you're cleaning your car 10 times a day, you're not going to be able to go through 10 pairs of gloves a day and keep that up. Is there something else they could be doing?
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, the gloves are also to protect the driver from the disinfectants, from the cleaning material, right? So normally if you're cleaning when I'm cleaning my kitchen floor, I put on rubber gloves, and it's kind of that same concept to protect you from the cleaning material. But we also recognize we're not in an ideal world right now, and that it is very hard to get your hands on these things. So I think and certainly we want to preserve all medical gloves for our healthcare professionals who desperately need it, because they're touching and directly in touch with sick people, with people who may have COVID, and with fluid and what have you. But if you do happen to have gloves, use them. If not, I think the important thing to do is to wash your hands directly afterwards, or use an alcohol-based sanitizer.
So
And also to not touch your face.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to.
The gloves, that's a lot of things. People wear the gloves all day, but then you touch your face. It's no different than if you had touched your face with your hands. So it kind of gives a false sense of protection sometimes. The gloves can just as easily get virus on it as your hand could. So it's very, very important to not touch your face with your gloves on.
So let's dig into this for a second, because I want people to understand what's going on. So my understanding of this is that COVID-19, as far as we can tell, you don't get it by touching it with your hands. It's that it gets in your face, your eyes, your mouth, your nose, your lips, that kind of stuff, and that your hand is a way to get it from another surface to your face. And that that's why we wash our hands so often. It's, if just in case I have some on my hands, I'm going to wash my hands and get it off my hands before I ever touch my face. With gloves, you talked about a false sense of security. Are gloves just like your hands? It doesn't matter if you're touching a surface wearing gloves and then touching your face with your gloves. It's the same problem. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this is a respiratory disease. So basically, the most important thing is that we're washing our hands for the sake of if we come into contact with COVID-19 with our hands, that we're not touching our face afterwards. So as long as we're washing our hands, and making sure that we're not touching our face before we wash our hands, that's like the most important thing. So when people put on gloves, sometimes the false sense of security is the fact that people might think that they're not coming into contact with, the droplets that might be on a surface. Basically, why we're asking people to wear face covering as well is that, if you're sneezing, if you're coughing, those droplets are not, going as far as 6 feet away from you. They just kind of like stay close to you, the same way as if you're coughing into your sleeve and you're catching them there, right? And so as long as you're washing your hands before you touch your face, it's fine. So if you're coming into contact with something, there's no need to panic. It's just like, okay, now I need to just be mindful that I'm not going to, scratch my face, touch my nose or my mouth until I'm able to wash my hands or disinfect. So even if, a few hours have to pass until you're able to do that, just be very mindful about not touching your face.
Gotcha. So just want to remind you, I see somebody's posting a question saying, hey, we can't get to a sink. We can't keep washing our hands. We do have on our website a description of a kit that you can put in the trunk of your car with water bottles and soap and things like that, and even a video demonstrating how to use the kit. Really, anytime you can pull over, you can pop your trunk and wash your hands. You can keep doing that throughout the day, even if you can't get access to hand sanitizer. So that seems to be a recurring theme on this webinar is wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And we are very sensitive to the fact that drivers are not, working next to a bathroom. They're not, not in a healthcare facility or a place that has a bathroom readily available. So there's not sinks readily available. We are sensitive to that. Okay, we're almost out of time here, and I do want to talk about other things Drivers Benefits is doing for drivers, especially around the economic questions, the financial questions. But before I do, Anna and Rima, are there any things you wanted to say on this webinar that you didn't get a chance to that you think drivers need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just want to make sure that, we emphasize the fact that this is a rapidly changing situation and things change day by day, hour by hour. So, our recommendations are as of right now, as of today. And as things change, we're being mindful to update everyone on the information. So there's, two things I want to say that please visit our website at nyc.gov/coronavirus. We're able to look up all of the guidelines that we spoke about today and others as well, just about the situation, what's happening. And social media is full of different information that's floating around out there, so it's very important that people are looking into valid information sources such as the Department of Health website at nyc.gov/coronavirus. And then also you can text the word COVID, COVID, to the number 692-692, and you're able to get real-time, up-to-date text messages sent to your phone, or COVID ESP, so that you can get it in Spanish. Also, if right now is a very tough time for a lot of people, and if a lot of people are feeling anxious, and panicked about what's going on, and it could be a lonely time as well. So if anyone is feeling stress and needs to talk to someone, please make sure that you are aware of NYC Well, where you can reach out to speak to someone, get connected to a trained counselor, and the number is 888 NYC Well. You can also text the word well, WELL, to the number 65173, or go online on nyc.gov/NYC Well to speak to someone, right? And again, also check our social media feeds for information as well. And it's, again, it's a rapidly changing situation. It's, a tough time for many, but just make sure to wash your hands often, as often as you can, right? So even if you can't wash them often, just be mindful about the fact that, this is a respiratory disease. So making sure that you're not touching your nose, mouth, and eyes until you're able to wash your hands, however long the time might be. And just, be mindful to monitor your health more closely than you have ever before.
So thanks, Anna. Before Rima, you get a chance to talk, let me just let everybody know that all of those phone numbers and everything else will be writing down and sending out in an email to everybody who is listening in. So if you feel like, oh my goodness, I didn't get to scribble all that down fast enough, we'll take it down for you and email that out. Rima, sorry, go ahead.
No, those are all great. That's all great information and tips provided by Anna. I just want to alert drivers to two resources in particular that are on our website. There's a general guidance for vehicle operators document on our website, and there's also a document for cleaning in non-healthcare facilities that has some information about how to clean things. So we also have a document, a frequently asked questions document about face coverings, so you can get some information about that. And these documents are regularly being updated. In fact, I think a new vehicle operator, a revised document is going to go up in the next couple of days. And it's just that it's such a fast-moving situation. So as more information becomes available, we try to update all of our fact sheets and frequently asked question documents, and that these documents are available in a number of languages. Sometimes we try to get up as many languages as we can. There's sometimes it's a lag just because of the volume, but we're doing our best to make this accessible in a number of languages. So to regularly go to our website for those updates. And then just another piece of advice is just to be really hyper vigilant about symptoms. Drivers are essential workers and they're still out there, and which is amazing, and we are so grateful. So we thank you because we know it's essential that healthcare workers and others can continue to get to where they need to go. But to really just be careful about monitoring your own health. If you have fever, if you have cough, shortness of breath, that it's essential that you stay home, that you don't take the chance, you don't go out so that you're not exposing others. We have a list of symptoms on our website. It's just really important. And even if you're just feeling under the weather, because this disease is really quite honestly so strange, it presents in different ways in different people, that it's essential that you might just have a sore throat, or you might just have a fever and no other symptoms, that you just be really, really careful about monitoring your own health, and all New Yorkers need to be. And hopefully those that feel sick aren't going out and aren't going into your cars. And so we ask the same of you. So again, thank you for continuing to do this important work. And we'd be happy to follow up with future webinars if there are other questions.
Yeah, it's so important to just continue staying home if you're not feeling well. So, all of the precautions that we can take, the best precaution is to stay home, when you have those symptoms. And just wanted to emphasize again the face coverings that Rima was talking about. Make sure that they're, not medical PPE, because we definitely desperately need that for our frontline healthcare workers. So just any kind of, face covering that covers your nose and mouth would work just great.
Well, thank you both. I really appreciate you taking this time under what I know must be crazy for you. I'm going to take a few minutes for our drivers now to talk about more information that's coming in the future around the financial, how drivers can be helped financially, and also what benefits are currently available through drivers' benefits so they can get help. I see some questions about telemedicine and things like that, so I'm going to address them as well. So first, on the financial questions. We understand that is absolutely paramount for drivers right now. The amount of trips has been reduced by about 70% for drivers who can get out of their houses and work, and many drivers feel they can't. Maybe you're high risk, or you're living with someone who's high risk. We completely understand that. There's been a lot of talk about unemployment benefits that are going to be available to drivers, grant programs that are available to people who are independent contractors and so on. We're following all that very closely, and the final steps that need to be taken to get that haven't been determined yet between the federal government and the state government. We're recording this on Monday, April 6th. So we think that information is going to be finalized in the next few days, and as soon as it is, drivers benefits going to do two things. The first is, or a few things. The first is we're going to create a guide that goes step by step of everything you need to do to get your benefits. Right now, we don't have all of the answers because they haven't made all the decisions yet as to what needs to be done. So nobody knows exactly what needs to be done. They're still figuring it out. As soon as they do, we're going to come up with step-by-step instructions, and we will translate that into a number of languages as well. The second thing is you can always call our 800 number, our 833 number. It's on our driversbenefits.org website. And people there can speak to you in 150 languages. And they also will be trained on what you need to do to get those benefits. And we will stay with you on the phone if we need to as you go through the entire process. We know that is incredibly important to drivers right now, and we are working on that as hard as we can, and we'll get you the information as soon as it's available. It just isn't available yet today. We're not trying to hide anything from you. There just is no final answer yet on how to get all the money that's coming, but it is coming, and we're going to work on that with you. What is available to you today are benefits that Drivers Benefits offers to all black car service drivers in New York State. That's any Uber driver, Lyft driver, or any of the older traditional car companies. If you drive for those companies, you can sign up now, register for MD Live. That's our telemedicine offering, and MD Live can help you talk to a doctor anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are some waits now, as you can imagine. They're getting slammed, but you can make an appointment and a doctor will call you back. You don't need to wait on the phone for an hour or two waiting for a doctor to come get you. They will call you back if you set an appointment a few hours down the road if you use the app. Second of all, we do have people as part of that to help with stress. So if you're just dealing with stress, if you need to talk to somebody about how hard it is to deal with, you're trying to take care of your family, you're not making the money you need to be made, you're afraid of getting sick, whatever the things that are causing you stress and fear are, we are all facing those too. And if you need to talk to somebody, that is included in the MD Live app. All of what I've just said is free for you to use. You can even get connected with a therapist who you can talk to on a regular basis, week after week, and get the help that you need. So it's not just a one-time, oh my God, I'm feeling crazy. You can actually talk to somebody and help solve these problems for free. If you ever have any questions, if somebody's trying to charge you for one of these, you don't understand why, our 800 number is available from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, Monday through Friday. We speak 150 languages. We will solve your problems for you. We really appreciate the work you're doing, drivers. We stand behind you, and we're doing everything we can to support you. So thank you again, Rima and Anna. Thank you, drivers, for keeping the rest of us all safe and moving. And we will talk to you again when we have information about those financial benefits. Finally, that one question about can you refuse a driver, we'll email that out to everybody when we get those answers for you. So, okay, thank you very much, and thank you for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye-bye.